Game designers await their Mendeleev. At this point, we have no periodic table. We have our own patchwork of principles and rules, which, less than perfect, allows us to get the job done. This is a quote from one of the most influential books I've ever read about designing games, The Art of Game Design, a book of lenses by Jesse Schell. It perfectly captures the complex problem with learning about design. Game design isn't really something you can simply learn by reading books or watching tutorials, but similar to learning programming or 3D modeling, reading books about design can expand your perspective and show you the direction in which you will develop further. Creating games is something you can truly learn by, well, creating games. There is no shortcut here. But there are some books that definitely taught me what kind of creative tools we can use to do that. Books that taught me to ask the right questions, and in some cases showed me that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time we start a new project. Here are the 5 books that shaped me into a designer at the beginning of my journey. If there is one book I could call the Bible of game design, it's this one, Jesse Schell's The Art of Game Design. It's a masterclass in understanding what makes games work. The book introduces a concept of lenses, different perspectives you can use to analyze and improve on your game. For example, the lens of curiosity challenges you to think about how your game keeps players engaged. What I love about this book is it doesn't give you any size-fits-all solution. Instead, it teaches you how to think like a designer. It's like having a toolbox full of creative questions you can ask yourself at every stage of development. For me, this book was a game changer. It showed me that game design isn't about following the rules, but rather about asking the right questions. I would strongly recommend this book to anyone that is considering becoming a game designer. It cuts through the most important topics about design. Things like understanding your player, understanding how to translate emotions into game, or how to create mechanics and systems or puzzles. But even more technical topics like understanding statistics or math in game design. I really recommend getting a physical copy. Mine is covered with personal notes and thoughts that I constantly keep revisiting with every project I work on. Theory of Fun by Ralph Koster is a book that dives deep into the psychology of why games are fun. Koster argues that fun comes from learning, specifically from mastering patterns and solving problems. When you play a game, your brain is constantly learning and adapting, and that's what makes it enjoyable. This book partially shifted how I think about game mechanics. It made me realize that good games are essentially teaching tools. They introduce players to new challenges and reward them for figuring things out. For example, think about how Tetris teaches you how to recognize specific shapes and patterns, or how Portal teaches you to think in 3 dimensions with its catchy title, Now You're Thinking with Portals. This book taught me that best games are the ones that make learning feel like play. Similarly to Jesse Schell's Art of Game Design, Theory of Fun touches a lot on how to design games that keep players in the flow state, which arises when players engage with and master problem-solving patterns. But it fades when the challenge becomes either too easy or too hard. Think of a tennis player that plays a game either with a 8-year-old child or with a complete champion that won every tennis award there is. To actually have fun from playing tennis, you need to find someone that is more or less at your level, but in ideal situation, someone that is a little bit better than you. So you keep being challenged and you have this room to grow. I personally read A Theory of Fun right after finishing Sapiens by Harari, and it kinda clicked with me in a way that games are something that humanity enjoyed from the very beginning, and that there is a real science behind making things fun and engaging. The next book on my list is Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. Now, this one might seem a bit out of place on a game design book list, but hear me out. This book is all about the general design of stuff. How to create products that are intuitive and easy to use. While it's not specifically about games, the principles in this book are very much relevant to any game design. For example, Norman talks about affordances, how the design of an object suggests its use. Even though it's not specifically suggested in this book, you can translate the same thing to games. For example, how you design controls or menus, and even level layouts. This book taught me that good design is invisible. It's about creating experiences that feel neutral and intuitive. If players are struggling with your controls or getting lost in your level, it's not their fault, it's yours. Reading this book made me realize that I made a big mistake at the beginning of my design career. I tried to stick to materials and lectures specifically about game design. And now I realize, well, video games are a thing for only the past 50 years, while other stuff that was designed in some way is around for hundreds or thousands of years. My main takeaway here is, as a designer, you should open yourself to taking as much from other disciplines as possible. Unless it's that one episode from Game of Thrones that was unnecessarily shot at night. Yeah, we probably shouldn't try to learn much from that one. Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces is a classic exploration of the hero's journey, a narrative structure that appears in myths and stories across cultures. One mind-blowing thing that this book made me realize is how most of the biggest franchises like Star Wars or Harry Potter were created using the same blueprint of telling a story. And just like the previous one, this book doesn't directly reference designing video game narratives. It's one of the best source materials to learn about creating compelling stories for games. And again, similar to the last one, this book made me realize that telling a story in a video game, even through things like gameplay and environment, can be done using lessons and methods humanity used for thousands of years, from when the first myths and legends were created. Even if your game is fully gameplay driven, you can use narrative structure to create emotional resonance and keep players invested. The topic of hero's journey is definitely something I want to explore deeper. I'm definitely planning to make a separate video about it, in which I'll share some of the discussions on the topic I had with one of the best video game story writers out there, so stay tuned. The last book on my list is quite a short one. You can probably read it in an hour or so, but it will stick with you for way longer than that. Still Like an Artist by Austin Kleon is an inspiring guide to creativity, and its core message is quite simple. Nothing is original. Every idea is built on what came before it, and that the key to creativity is to embrace influence, remix ideas and make them your own. For me, this book was a reminder that it's okay to borrow ideas from other games, books, or even real life. The important thing is to add your own twist and make something unique. This book taught me that creativity isn't about starting from scratch. It's about building on top of what already exists and making it your own. The format of this book is sort of piece of art itself. It's a book that I kept coming back to and revisiting it just to interact with it, because it's just so pleasant to look at. And it also introduces some really cool inspirational stuff, which I usually don't like that much, but for some reason this book resonated with me in a very weird way, and I definitely recommend giving it a try. So there you have it, the 5 books that made me a game designer. Each of these books taught me something different, from how to think like a designer to how to tell compelling stories and create experiences. But remember, reading these books will not magically make you a great game designer. They are rather tools to help you ask the right questions and think critically about your work. If you're just starting out, I highly recommend picking up at least one of these books and diving in. And if you've already read them, let me know in the comments which one had the biggest impact on you. I'm planning a follow-up video where I will dive deeper into more specific topics like narrative design, player psychology, advanced game mechanics, and animation. So if you're interested, make sure to subscribe and not miss out on it. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Bye!